Good afternoon and welcome to Shawano News, your positive source in a crazy world. I'm your host, Jaime Lee. Today we are at Docs Harley-Davidson of Shawano for a two-part special of this Harley heaven. Come with me and let's take a ride. Today, I have the pleasure of being with the man himself, Doc. Thank you for joining us. We are at the vintage, the very first motorcycles. Can you tell us a little bit how you got started in the whole Harley business?
Well, I grew up in Algoma, Wisconsin, and I wanted to own a motorcycle. My parents would not buy one or help me get me one. So prior to all of this stuff, I had built all kinds of go-karts and mini bikes, and I built a snowmobile out of a grocery store belt and an airboat out of a propeller I found, and all different things. But when I was 15 and a half, I knew that I was getting my driver's license, and I could drive a motorcycle with my temporary driver's license during daylight hours only. So, backing up to about age 15, I started building my own motorcycle. And I got some metal, and I bent the frame up, and I made a front fork, and I put a small little 5-horsepower Briggs on there. I made a small little mini bike, as it were, but it was a neat little chopper. And I took it to the Algoma Police Department, and I got it licensed. And I didn't miss 1 second. By the time I got my license when I was 15 and a half, I was out that same afternoon riding around Algoma. I put 3,600 miles riding around Algoma, Wisconsin on that little mini bike when I was 15 and a half.
So, since you were a very young man, you had a dream and a passion and nothing was going to stop you.
Exactly, yes.
After you grew up a little bit, how did you come into the Harley-Davidson business?
So I finished high school. I got out of there. I went to school for 5 years after high school, but in between that, I had bought a little house up in Red Banks, Wisconsin, and I was fixing that all up. And I was also working out of my garage, fixing other people's motorcycles. And but during that time, I had an opportunity to meet a Harley-Davidson dealer over in Shawano. And this gentleman was, we went and just talked to him one night, and that's all it took.
Hit it off.
And man, this guy was foreman of the race and tuning team for Harley-Davidson for 25 years prior to him starting his dealership in 1970 in Shawano. And so he had a world of knowledge about racing that I was really involved in and wanted to do, because I'd been racing all my old street bikes and that sort of thing. And anyway, Roy Bokelman was his name, and he owned what was now S&S Marina. Mm-hmm. And so he was there, and so he said, come and work for me. And I locked up my little house, and I put a for sale sign on it. 2 weeks later, the house sold. I moved to Shawano, and I've been here ever since 73. And anyway, so Roy taught me a world of knowledge about the racing world and engine building. I knew a lot about things myself, but he gave me so much more knowledge, and not only that, but he was such a genuine person and a great man.
A mentor to you.
Yeah.
And so then you came here in 73, and I know you were at a different location years back.
Yeah, well, I worked for Roy for a few years, but then his wife got cancer, and Roy just wanted out, and he gave Harley-Davidson back to the factory. He sold Evinrude and all the stuff. He sold the marina, got everything. I moved up the street and started a little repair shop. And I have a picture of it up on the wall. I don't have a picture of it, but I drew a picture from memory.
Right. So you're an artist too.
A hand-painted or hand-drawn picture. Anyway, that was my first shop, and it was a tiny little building. It was only a stall and a half garage, and I rented it for $75 a month. And 2 days before I opened my door, I fixed a man's Harley while I was in there getting the place set up, and I made $75 on the parts and labor. So I knew I'd be there at least a month.
Yes. And it seems through all this, the thread is meeting these different people and the connections and the love that you share from, the genuine love of bikes and and community. It's so far the story just seems divine.
Yeah.
And so you went from right, just beginning. We went from the little shop in Shawano, and now we are at this big area right on Highway 29. Tell us about.
Well, there was some things that happened in between there. So the little shop on 29, I stayed there about 2.5 years, and then I moved over to Shawano's Industrial Park and bought a little lot over there for a very good price. They wanted to get the industrial park going, and I built a little 30 by 40 steel building. And while I was working in there was a dealer, another Harley-Davidson dealer in Manawa, Wisconsin. He had 3 mechanics working for him, but nobody knew how to do any heavy engine or transmission work. They had all the tools and equipment, but nobody knew how to run it. So he was bringing me all of that work twice a week, dropping it off and picking it up. And one day, he was walking out the door with a box of engine parts that I had just machined for him, and I stopped him partway through the door and I said, "Hey, if you ever want to sell your Harley franchise, let me know." And he laughed and went out the door, and I thought, well, I guess he doesn't want to. But 2 weeks later, the phone rang, and it's him, and he says, "I have all the figures together." And I said, "You mean?" "Yeah," he said, "to buy my Harley franchise." So I bought it for pennies on the dollar, because there was a point in
$75?
no, $75.
Okay, $2.
Yeah, right. Well, those days were gone.
Right.
But yeah. So anyway, yeah, he just he wanted to sell, because Harley-Davidson in 1983, there was a point in 1983 that Harley-Davidson was within 20 minutes of bankruptcy on 5 o'clock on one day in 83, and if they had not received financing by that time that day, they were in receivership. They were done. So, and this guy knew that. A lot of the Harley dealers knew that it could be going down the tube. So he sold it for pennies on the dollar. And I jumped in at the right time. And I didn't think that Harley was going down the tubes. You know, everybody else was worrying, but I wasn't. I just forged ahead, and I wanted to buy it. So I called Harley-Davidson, and they said, yes, I could become a dealer. I could buy them out, but you do have to add a 5,000 square foot facility to your dealership, or to your spot in the industrial park for a showroom. And that was going to cost some money, and it was going to cost some money to buy the fella out, and I did not have that money. So I went to all 3 banks in Shawano, and they all flatly turned me down and said, "You don't have enough collateral to cover this, to get the loan, to do what you want to do." And I thought, oh boy, here we go. So I made up a whole new prospectus. Anyway, again, a few days later, the phone rang, and it was Tom Trittin from the community bank in Shawano. It was a privately owned bank. And he said, "Steve, come back in again. We want to talk to you about this whole thing." And he came back and he said, "You know, you really don't have enough collateral to cover this, but the bank wants to take a chance on you." Really? And I did, and they did. And in short order, I paid them back, because 1983, even though Harley was in receivership, they did find financing just 20 minutes before 5 o'clock that afternoon, so it got saved. And anyway, it was during the year of 1983 that Harley-Davidson came out with their brand new Evolution engine, which changed everything about Harley-Davidson, and they went public to the stock market and shot right up, and I came right along with it.
So you came in right at the right time.
Yeah, and another interesting fact about all of this is that every Harley-Davidson dealer has a zip code area around the outside of their dealership, and that's called their dealership territory. And lo and behold, the dealership territory that I had was the least number of population of any dealer in the United States. And so they judge how many motorcycles you receive based on your population size in your dealership territory. Well, I was awarded 7 new motorcycles a year. I was happy with that. You know? Hey, I'm a Harley dealer, I don't care. So anyway, I became a Harley dealer, and you know, things just got better and better and better. And but there was always this catch that my population size would not give us enough motorcycles. So there was again a point through the 80s and all through the 90s that we were actually building motorcycles from scratch. You couldn't get the motorcycles from factory as a whole, but you could buy every single part and piece to make a Dyna or a Softail motorcycle, and we were assembling our own motorcycles in the dealership to the tune of 130 a year. Wow. Instead of 7 that I got from the factory, you know.
And kind of using your skills from when you were a little boy, you were able now to make these bikes that you love to do and have your own shop and be in charge of your own destiny.
And another good thing about that program was the customer, we could have him sit down and say, we have to order the parts to build the complete motorcycle. Do you want the chrome part or do you want the black part? You can get it put on for no charge because we have to build the whole bike anyway. So there's very little difference between a black powder-coated part and a chrome part. But if you go to buy, say, a chrome swing arm from Harley-Davidson, after you buy a Fat Boy, it's $461, plus labor to put it on, and then the old part sits in the garage. Now we can just order the chrome part for a $40 upgrade and put it on for you for free, and people loved that whole program. They got a beautiful motorcycle, even the paint job, everything just how they wanted them, for a much, much less price.
Custom Docs Harley-Davidson special.
Yes.
Well, I love the whole back history, and I wanted to say thank you for giving us this opportunity. I know people in your life have helped you, and Shawano News, this has always been my dream to interview you, so I manifested this today. So thank you, Doc, and I can't wait to see more of the bikes and the cars. Let's go for a little tour.
Okay, we can do that.
Let's rock.
All right.
Docs is more than just Harleys. There's also some other wheels to check out. Let's head to the classic car museum. Vroom, vroom. The big mama here, the big car that is the token of this museum. Tell us about this black beauty.
Well, this is a 1970 Hemi Cuda in triple black, and it's a 4-speed car. It's totally rust-free from Texas, very low miles. I was at the Barrett-Jackson car auction when the brother to this car sold for $750,000 plus the fees on both sides. So anyway, yeah, it's just it's kind of the poster child of the museum.
With Doc and his daughter Kirsten to talk about a really awesome thing the two people do together as a family. It's called the Cannonball Run, which is an annual, again, race across the country, endurance race for motorcyclists. These are some of the only daughter and father team to finish this, like with a perfect score. Tell us about the Cannonball race. What is it all about?
Well, the motorcycle Cannonball is a endurance race for people with antique motorcycles, and they do one every 2 years since 2010, and every year the route is different. So in 2018, when my dad and I competed together, we went from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon, and in order to compete that particular year, your bike had to be at least 1928 or older.
And you guys ended up winning that or getting a perfect score that year?
Yeah, we both were able to get a perfect score. So out of 107 riders in the competition, not everyone made every single mile, but we did pretty well and ended up making it the whole way. We were the only father-daughter team to ever compete so far in the Cannonball.
So ever the only, the best and the only. I think you learned from the best. I heard from your dad that growing up here, you were in the shop, and instead of playing with Legos, you were playing with nuts and bolts and motorcycle parts. So it's so awesome that you're able to be a part of this, and the family tradition continues with, strong, beautiful women. So tell me more about your role at Harley.
Well, I'm the general manager here at Docs, so I oversee the overall operations of the dealership, but then I also work side by side with my husband as well, and he co-manages the dealership. And then just last year we opened our new entity, which is a whole new business here, Docs Full Bore Outdoor, and in that building is where we sell the Intimidator UTVs, the Spartan lawnmowers. We're also a Toro dealer, so we sell Toro lawnmowers, as well as this fall we'll be carrying the Toro snowblowers. And then we also sell Argo XTVs, which are the big 6- and 8-wheel vehicles that are amphibious. You can drive them on land and in water.
So more than just Harleys, there is so much here to offer. You're constantly expanding and growing, and kind of a family legacy to continue. Doc, tell us more about your experience with the Cannonball, because I know it's important to you.
Well, yes, it's been quite a ride. There's stickers on each of our windshields, and these are called ACE stickers. If you do well the day before, in other words, there's a There's a green flag that leaves in the morning and a checkered flag that drops at night. And if you're not under the checkered flag at night, you lose your points for the day. So if you do everything correct and make the checkpoints on the day before, the next morning they hand you your ACE sticker. And it's specific to the day and the place you stopped that night and the number of miles you went that day. So each sticker is different. These became a status symbol. The more you see on your motorcycle, the better you're doing. Some people got 3 or 4 the whole trip. We got all of them, and so the more stickers you see, everybody looks at you like, wow, they're really doing good.
Well, you guys are doing so good. And stay tuned, because in September they're going to be going on another Cannonball, so that might be some also interesting Shawano news. Stay tuned. Don't forget that Docs also has a full-service parts and maintenance. You can see the guys working in the shop. We got Bailey here, Doc's dog. So get your stuff fixed. That's right. Fun hanging out with Doc today. Stay tuned for part 2, where we explore more of all of Doc's creations. Until next time, this is Jaime Lee signing off for Shawano News. Remember, keep riding towards your dreams and keep living and loving in the 54166.